All right, cool. So let's go through the answers for the CPR quiz number 1 that you guys have been given. I'm not going to go through the full kind of this is what the answer is because the marking schedule is provided. The main thing I want to show with this video is just trying to decode the question. So you're trying to show understanding or decode the question so you know how to tackle these. All right. So this one is from the 2015 exam. I've given you question number 2. And this one here is looking at that multiple alleles. So this is the new material that we were talking about with these new types of alleles that were this week's lesson. Because we know now that it's not as simple as dominant and recessive. So they're talking about human blood types. They're talking about A, B, and type O. They say A, B are dominant over O. However, A and B are inherited together. They show codominance. So now we're starting to look at those new terminologies. This one here is just a definition question that's asking for what are multiple alleles. So I'm just going to move over to the marking schedule to save us some time. So in this case, the first thing that you're trying to do is define multiple alleles. It just means obviously there's more than 2, because if there were just 2, that'd be dominant and recessive, or potentially like codominant or incomplete dominant. Okay, not a good example. Just with multiple alleles, you're just dealing with more than one. And again, this was only an achieve level question, and that's just describing what multiple alleles are. I really don't like the setup of how they've put the marking schedule because they've just put all the bullet points and smushed it all for question 2 instead of dividing it up into A, B, and C. So I'll try my best to try to identify what's A and what's B and what's C. In this case, this is A, and describing the multiple alleles. Cool. All right, so then they've given you a pedigree chart. Those are things you guys have seen previously from last year. They want you to use the pedigree chart to show the 2 children and their phenotypes that results in a male with type B and a female with type AB. And what they've actually done is they've given you a list of possible genotypes that result in that phenotype. So the thing to remember is that when you get an A and a B allele, that's codominant. So you're going to have both of those expressed. You need to have 2 recessive traits for type O. And then there's 2 possibilities that can get you type A and type B. One is homozygous dominant, and the other one is heterozygous, where they have one of those recessive alleles. The heterozygous with A and B obviously don't result in one phenotype. It results in those both phenotypes because of that codominance. So with AB, I already know the genotype for that person because they have codominance. I'm not sure what type B is right now because there's 2 possible choices, so I need the rest of the pedigree chart to figure that out. The big hint here is that I see that there's a child with type B. That is only possible in 2 ways. First off, I need to get one of those B's from the parent. And then, sorry, let me backtrack. So, explain why child 1 only has 2 possible genotypes. All right, so if I was to backtrack here, child 1 is type B, so I could have homozygous dominant or I could have heterozygous. Child 2 can only be that heterozygous, like the parent A and B. Now, in this case, they've obviously inherited the A from the AB parent, and then the B must have come from this parent here. I'm not sure from this information what the B parent is, because the B parent could be the heterozygous or homozygous dominant, because with that B blood type there, I don't know which 2 possible genotypes it has. I could figure out what B is if I had another child, and if that child was an A type, that would confirm that this must be the genotype. But at this point, we can't decide that. But the main thing in that one is explaining the possible genotypes and just saying that, with child A, there's obviously 2 genotypes because in order to be B type, you can either be heterozygous and express the B phenotype, or you're homozygous dominant. And you see how in the answer they're being very specific on what they are inheriting from each parent. And that's what you need to be mindful of as well, is being that specific of who is getting what. Be mindful of the circles and the squares, because the circles tell us female and the squares tell us male. So you can refer to things as mother and father. Child 2 can only have that one genotype because it has to get 1A and 1B. So yeah. Achieve point describing one parent's genotype. So that's basically when we're looking at this question, being able to say that this one is AB, or if you stated ABO, or not ABO, BO or BB as your option. So that was any one of those three would have gotten you an achieve point. Cool. Monohybrid Punnett square showing the possible genotypes of child 2. I think. What are we looking at? Oh, that's question C. Yeah. So that one's B. Explains why child 1 has 2 possible genotypes. Needs to mention alleles from the gametes from both parents. So you see what I'm saying with that specificness of the detail for the merit. And then I think in this one that must be C. So this is B and that is B. And then I'm guessing the rest of the bullet points must be referring to question C, which isn't really a surprise. In most of these questions, you'll notice that as you go through them, the higher the point value that it maximizes at. So this one will maximize at achieve. This one's probably maximizing at merit. The last one is what's going to maximize at the excellence level. Be mindful though, with each one of those, there's still possibilities to get achieved and merit with them. So even if it is an excellence level question, do at least give it a go, even if you're only wanting an achieved or a merit, because there's points in there. All right, last question here then is looking at child 2, which is the AB, and they have children with a female that's homozygous O blood type. You can only have the homozygous recessive anyway, because you need to have both recessive alleles. So they want you to talk about the possible phenotypes and genotypes of the offspring, an explanation between dominance and codominance, and a discussion of why the children cannot have O or AB blood type. So make sure whenever you're answering this question that you go through each one of those bullet points would be my kind of recommendation. And if they have this statement here, use diagrams in your answer, you don't need to have it, but I highly recommend that you do that, because in most cases it is part of a marking schedule. So if we're looking at this, one of the first things you need to be drawing is the Punnett squares. So this is representing child 2, that AB, and that shows them having a child with a female that's homozygous recessive. So that O blood type, and then they filled in the Punnett square like they would with any monohybrid cross. So doing that is an achieve level point. Stating the possible phenotypes and genotypes. There's an and here, so you need to do both. Of the offspring. So being able to say that, 50% will be AO, 50% will be BO, 50% will be A blood type, 50% will be B blood type. So you need to make sure you state both phenotype and genotype. Or you have the Punnett square and you've stated the phenotype. So let's say you forgot to write down the genotype ratio. So long as you had the Punnett square there, they would have still given it to you. And these are 2 different achieve points, even though they're quite similar with how they were awarded, because you can use that Punnett square basically twice. But do be mindful whenever you're doing that, you are stating ratios. Cool. So the other thing that I would suggest you do with biology standards is that you make sure you give definitions. There's usually the achieve point is with the definition. So defining dominance, defining codominance. The main difference between dominance and codominance is that dominance, you have one of those alleles, and when you have one of those alleles, it's going to be expressed over the recessive. Codominance means that they're both equally dominant, so they're going to be expressed together, resulting in the AB phenotype. Cool. So that's all the achieve points. For the next bit here, we're thinking about justification on why. Oh, gotcha. All right, so I'm just looking at how they've awarded these questions. It's quite interesting. I'm a chemistry teacher normally, so this biology stuff is all new to me, and it's really fascinating how they just divide up the points. All right, so describing it is the achieved, but explaining why is the recessive. So basically, the explanation bit is the one dominant allele is expressed over the second allele, equally expressed. So it's just giving the reasons to why, and make sure you're linking it back into the blood type. So now I can explain it better. Sorry, let me backtrack. If you can just define dominance and codominance, you get the achieved point. But if you can tie it back to the question and actually use the blood typing as your examples to explain what those terminology means, that would then get you a merit point. So 2 merit points, one for the dominance and one for the codominance. All right, and then the last thing then is the excellence level points. So 3 were possible here depending on what you were discussing. The first bit here is explaining why could it not be possible for the children to be O or AB blood type. So I'm guessing that must be part, C, with the discuss why none of the children will have O or AB, and that's just looking at the Punnett square and explaining how, you need to get an allele from each parent, and to be O blood type, you need to inherit 2 recessive alleles, and that's not possible with the AB blood type, and with because the AB blood type can only give an A allele or a B allele. And AB isn't possible because of the O blood type can only give the recessive allele. So there's no way for the child to inherit an A or a B from this parent. Cool. Links explanations to dominant and codominance and explains why there's no O or AB. So that's just taking it to another layer. So in this layer here, you're tying it back to the parents. In this layer here, you're actually referring to the genotype and what that's going to refer to in the expression. And then the last bullet point here is discussion is supported by relevance to paternal genotypes and genotype ratios and percentages of offspring. So that's just going through and actually mentioning 50% and things like that, and understanding gametes, sperm and egg, and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're looking at for this question here. And then here is the breakdown of the points for achieved merit and excellence. In this case, they were quite generous with the excellence. You only needed 1 of those points, and there were 3 there. So do kind of keep that in mind. With the merit, they needed 3 for the M6, and they've given you 1, 2, 3, 4 possibilities for it. So they usually give you more than enough opportunities. And then for achieved, there was 4 for the A4, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've given you 6 achieved points potentially. If you hit all 6, then there's no extra value to it. It's just an A4 still. So do keep that in mind when you're answering. So do kind of make sure you're addressing all the bullet points and taking things a step further and trying to explain it, and always tie back to the question and the example provided. That's kind of one of the key things with biology, is that you can regurgitate the information that you understand, but if you don't tie it back to the question, it's going to limit the amount of points you can get for it. Cool. So I think that's basically all I need to cover with that. If you're struggling with this codominance blood type stuff, go back and refer to the lessons that I posted this week to help with that.